Well, I want to introduce my dear, dear friend, Toby Johnson. Have we ever figured out how long we've known each other? Has it been? So I've been working with Moringa for 23 years.
So at least 20, maybe longer. 90,
99?
98 or 99.
Okay, so as long as I've been, because it was pretty early on, and it's one of those like cycles of life that happen. I had decided I needed to do vermiculture. This was before there was really any information available. And I found a supplier in the next city, and I went and bought worms. And then a number of other things were happening, cycling in my life. And I ended up at a meeting, a resource conservation district meeting. And Toby was there. I didn't know that it was her business. I had gotten those worms from her business partner, and we ended up in the same meeting. And we then became, I was the president, became the vice president of the Resource Conservation District for the RCD in San Diego. And since then, we've done, both went to the organic training to be organic inspectors, and Tascador, somewhere, North Redwood City.
Redwood City.
And I went on to be an inspector, and she just used that information for her own use. And then different things happened. She lived at our house for a while. She was there building greenhouses with me and planting moringa, and just became so much a part of our whole life, our family, and continues to be. I mean, forever. This is a forever friend. And then when we talked about the vermiculture and I started to do my courses, of course, Toby came to every course and taught this section of our course. So for 7 years, this very loyal and dear friend has shown up at the drop of the hat. He just shows up and is in service to us and to humanity for getting this information out to people, and the caregiver of worms worldwide. And so it's just been an honor and such a pleasure to know her over the years and be a part of her life. And yeah, and so we just always project our lives together, because that's pretty much how it is.
It is.
It is.
Lifelong partnerships.
Yeah.
Community, which you guys are all a part of now.
Yeah, big community. And I remember she was thinking about doing a business with us, like large scale. And so we started on a business background. So we did a business plan, a logo, and a whole process for how you would, come to a company. And so we actually did this for Paula Casino.
The Paula Casino.
So that's a local casino for us. They had the casino, but not the restaurant yet, and not the hotel. No, they had the restaurant, not the hotel.
Not the hotel.
And so we actually set up an appointment and presented this to the head of that whole
entity,
yeah. And it was very interesting because we did an audit. We did, it was very, very professional and just such incredible information. But so long ago that people were really not thinking in these terms. But going through that process with her, she realized, I'm not a corporate kind of gal. I'm not try to deal with all of the issues that come with, and that one was extreme because you had to give up you were in the catacombs it was completely.
Yeah, it was like getting into Fort Knox.
Yeah, because, there's millions of dollars of money going through there every day. We were just like, where are we? It's like, so that was a little bit of an extreme example, but that was still, you're in a corporate situation, and it just was away from, too many steps away from where she really is grounded. And so we didn't pursue it. I think we called it
Remains of the Day.
Remains of the Day.
Although we did do the Jewish Academy the year before when it was being built.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they were successfully inaugurated into contained worm composting on their site.
Oh, yeah. So that was right at that same time.
Yes.
So those smaller scale, but then just, her life moved into other directions. But it was a great experience and an amazing connection that we had, that I could help her and come to the point of like going, nah, not that. All right. So sometimes you do a lot of work to realize That's not
Wrong
it.
direction.
And sometimes people stay in that wrong direction because they have all the time and effort and money and investment, and you just stay on a track that at that early on it's not for you. But I mean, that's the story of so many people.
It was a great experience. One more amazing life experience with Medico. You guys will have many.
Yeah, I hope so. So that's how. So then, how you began with vermiculture? That's a story.
I was approached by. Well, I grew up on a farm, and my grandfather kept worms, and we fed them table scraps, of course. But in 95 or 96, I was approached by the Greater San Diego Resource Conservation District and the North Coastal Conservancy in Carlsbad, and asked if I would take the lesson plans I had been writing as an independent contractor for children who are falling through the cracks and create an agricultural program with worms as the vehicle to teach children how to recycle.
Oh, I had not. You might have said that early on, but now I'm starting to come into focus.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And so I was writing lesson plans because I had 2 children who were special needs, one autistic, one deaf. And so disheartened by what the districts were able to offer children who had special needs just because of the overwhelming time and energy already placed on the teaching staff. And it was because of these lesson plans I was writing that the RCD contacted me. And I already have a background in agriculture, growing up on farms. So it was a really easy shift for me and a joyful venture for me. And they introduced me to Shelley Grossman, who was my partner in crime. And we created an agricultural program, and a vermiculture program, and the children put together a garden group, beginning with children who were falling through the cracks. And it was so successful that year number 2, the district asked us to expand. And so we put a vote. The children got to vote. It was their program. It didn't belong to the school district. It belonged to the children. And they decided that they would each choose one child to mentor. It had to be a child that spoke a different language and was hopefully from a different cultural background. Our school was located in the barrio. It was also the language academy for the District of Carlsbad. So the Spanish academy was there. So here are these children falling through the cracks who really, were growing up as the underdog and, not being uplifted and nurtured by their environment or by their peers. And it was amazing to see these children choose compassion as they chose a child who likely had been cruel to them through their school experience and bring them in and mentor them and teach them about the worms and about agriculture. And we were going to the farmer's market with excess produce and worm casts. And it was just a phenomenal endeavor. We brought in professionals from the city of Carlsbad to teach the kids about what a board of directors was and how to set one up and, how to do all of the accounting, everything, so that they had the business that they were in charge of, not the committee.
What is the age group?
Initially it was, so the kids that were running the business were from 3rd to 6th grade.
Oh, yeah.
Although it encompassed kindergarten through the junior high.
That's so great.
So
yeah, that's amazing. Because then from there, then that kind of steps into when I start to know you, because you were doing that, selling worm castings and worms. I think I bought both
from us, yes,
over the years, and then the writing of your book, which you'll talk about later. But so. It's been a journey.
It has. In fact, the program was so successful that the International Worm Growers Association asked us to host their annual gathering the second year of our program. So we had Clive Edwards from the University of Ohio, Uday Balwalkar from Pune, India, who at the time were the leading experts in worms and annelids. We had like 150 people came from around the globe. We had emissaries from Africa and England and South America, coming to learn how they could take this little tiny program and take it back to their communities and expand it to serve their environments.
Amazing. Really incredible. And then you just imagine, you know, it's just like a drop in a pebble in a pond that that information with those children you will, you know, impacted are doing something.
Yes.
You know, so that's the thing. It doesn't take you know, just a little seed of an idea, and then you start, and then you do the next thing and the next thing, and that's how it has been with Moringa too.
Yes.
I've been like starting with this little thing, and as it goes, it's just bigger and bigger.
And now you're international.
And now all these people, so maybe we'll come full circle, and people will say, "I was in that class." That'd be so cool. Yeah, so that's how it is in this magical world with Moringa. Is this the full circle that happens? Is like we are traveling side by side. Sometimes we don't actually know it. We have to really like look and expand our peripheral vision to see who's on this journey with us.
Yes.
You know? And it's just such a delight. So I'll let you continue. Behind us are the posters that she had made for our course. As she taught the course, we also have some worms from my worm bin, so she can demonstrate that to you. So I leave you with Toby.
Thank you and welcome, Saram. So the Carlsbad project was a very small little something. And before Carlsbad, there was Pune, India with Uday Balwalkar, who went to the poorest of the poor communities. And in India, they live in these high-rise apartment buildings with these little tiny balconies. And we were able to build these 20 by 40 cement bins, planting banana trees in the center and filling them with worms, compost. And on each floor there was a grinder, a commercial grinder. And so these families took their organic waste each day through the grinder, slewed it into these bins to feed the worms. And these poor communities who were not at all self-sufficient and struggling, not only were able to use the cast to augment their bad soil and grow these phenomenal gardens on their little tiny balconies, but they produced enough excess cast that it became a business for them, and they started to become self-sufficient. So you can look up Uday Balwalkar and his work in Pune, India. It's quite amazing. We did a program in Mexico as well, something very similar, whose name is escaping me now, but you can contact Mariko at some point, and I will have that information, since my brain seems to be that thing I'm forgetting with right now. But we'll come to that as we go along. Another thing that came out of the program in Carlsbad was this lovely book that Shelley and I co-wrote together. It's a very simple beginner's book, but it is just full of all of the basic information you need. You can also look up Mary Applehoff, Worms Eat My Garbage. There are so many books out there, just simple books that will help you begin and flourish and allow you to use your excess food and cardboard and the dirt from your vacuum bag and the hair from your brush to process your excess and enrich your soil and grow phenomenal food. So the beauty of worm casts is that they are an immediate source of food for your plants. It's not like Miracle Grow, where the microorganisms and the macroorganisms in the soil have to eat it and convert it and poop it out so that it becomes something that their plants can then take up. Worm casts are an immediate source of food. Worms have beneficial bacteria in their gut, antimicrobials, antibiotic, anti-insecticide. So the plants are then taking that up in a holistic way. Much like, I will tell you, these new pesticides they have and GMO seeds are imbued with pesticides that the plant is taking up, which means the food that you're eating is imbued with a pesticide, something you really don't want in your system. the properties in the worm casts are already in a chemical compound, a chemical creation, so that it is the plant using it in defense for itself, but it is not imbued into the food. It is merely, it is a homeopathic, and so it is the essence, not the chemical. So for those of you who understand homeopathics, you know what I'm saying. Those of you who do not understand homeopathics, it's a really quick Google search to find out the difference between Monsanto's chemicals, I'm just using them as an example, and worm casts. They also sheathe their casts with a mucosoidal property that makes it time release. So another project we did was in the high desert here in California for the city of Dubai, looking for a way when they were first planning to create this city out of nothing, and how they could, instead of importing absolutely everything, which is what they ended up doing, how they could grow things there in the sand. So we went to the high deserts, to Awanga here in California, and we built 40 by 30 foot parameters, cement, filled the whole place with sand, took 3-inch diameter PVC pipe, buried it in the sand, scooped it out, and backfilled it with soil aggregates imbued with worm casts. And in 6 months, we had this amazing, lush forest of food. And when the committee of they from Dubai came and saw what we were able to do in sand with a minimal amount of soil and worm casts, they asked for 5 overseas cargo ships full of worm poop, which is amazing, but not attainable. So I don't know where you can go anywhere on this planet and get that kind of volume, but I so appreciated their desire to make that happen. It is unfortunate it did not come to fruition, but it's again something you can maybe look up. I'm not positive that is so, but you are limited only by your ability to imagine. And take a slow, deep breath and come in gratitude to these amazing entities and to the soil and to our mother, and find a way to love them up as you are loving up the soil and your fellow man. So let's look at what we're talking about here. There are 1,500 species of annelids, which is what a worm is. It is Latin for segmented. This species, there are probably half of them are aquatic, the other are terrestrial. This is the manure worm, the bandling, the red wiggler. In Latin, his name is Icena fetida. Fetida meaning fetid. So when this guy is under stress, his tail becomes yellow, full of a fetid, foul substance that smells like rotten garlic. And it is a form of defense. They excrete that in the mouth of the bird or whatever it else is that's trying to eat them. He's all scrunched up. Let's find a guy who's not quite. So you can see there's this fat part on him called the clitellum. In a mature worm, this band, this fatted band, houses sexual organs, the ovum and the semen. We have a picture of, we do. So if we come on over here to worm sex. So here's what we're talking about, the clitellum, and it's about 1/3 of the way down the worm's body. This is the sign of a mature worm. 2 worms come together and they marry each other, their clitellum, to their semen port, which is back here. So I apologize, I said the semen was here, but it's really back here. They marry each other together. They hold on to each other with these little hairs that are on each segment called setae. They grasp each other. They produce a mucus ring around each other. And they're like this for a couple of hours. And as the mucus ring forms, they expel ovum and semen into that mucus ring. So it's a cocoon. And when it is filled, they then begin to back up out of it, like pulling a t-shirt off over your head. And it rolls into a little lemon-shaped cocoon. In general, there are between 3 and 5 babies in each cocoon, but there can be significantly more. So as you're working through your worm bin and you find these little tiny lemon-shaped egg casings, you will be able to tell their maturity level based on their color. So they start out yellow like a lemon and they become brick red when they are ready to hatch. There are actually a number of websites where you can see worms hatching from a cocoon. They are so sturdy, they can last decades, literally, live and viable until there is moisture enough to trigger them to hatch. If we go back to talking about the worm's poop, and they sheathe their excrement in the same mucus they use to make their cocoon, it makes their leavings a time-release additive for the soil. So this program we did up in Awanga, 5 years after the program, we could still detect worm casts in the sand. 5 years. That is amazing. I don't know of any commercial fertilizer that can do that I don't know any commercial fertilizer that can do that. And if it can, I don't want it in my soil because what the hell is it? Right? So let's look at basic worm anatomy so that you aren't killing your babies as you are asking them to be of service to you. They love to be sung to, by the way. I sing to my worms all the time. I will tell you, however, they don't really like vibration. So if you're going to set up a bin, don't put it on your dryer. Don't set it next to your child's stereo system. Put it somewhere in the shade where, their fellow companions on this planet can sing to them when you're not there to sing to them. So worms are annelids. Annelid means segmented. A worm is basically just a big tube with a mouth on one end and a rectum on the other. So they move through the soil with their mouths open, taking in soil aggregate and compostable materials, rotting leaves. If I fell down in the forest and Monaco didn't come and pick me up, they would eat everything but the fillings in my teeth. Everything. Having said that, they're not actually coming up to me and eating me, or are they eating the leaf litter? They are eating the bacteria and the fungi, the actinomycetes that are actually performing the decomposition process. So, so we have a mouth, we have 5 brains. We have, 5 nerve ganglion, and 5 hearts. That does not mean, however, that if you cut a worm in half, because he has 5 hearts, he's going to live. He's not. He's going to die. You can see here that where the testes and the spermatoces and the seminal vesicles and the ovaries, this is all within the band where the clitellum is. This lovely bulb. So they move through the soil, they take in soil aggregate and compostable material. It comes into their crop. The grit that they are eating works just like it does in a chicken. And through muscular contraction, the grit, along with what they're eating, is ground in the crop in the gizzard. And from there, it makes its way into their intestine, which is the rest of their body. It is sheathed with this mucozoidal product as they excrete, and they come to the soil surface to evacuate. So of the terrestrial species of worms, I'm sure you've seen many of them in your yard. Icena fetida and its cousin Icena andre are fairly small worms. They're, up to about 6 inches long. And they live on the soil surface, eating the critters that decompose leaf litter and dead bunnies and whatever else is out there. So they are turning and churning all of the lovely aggregates on the soil surface. And I will tell you, worms excrete on the soil surface. So when you get up in the morning and you go out to your garden and you see these little pyramid-shaped, looks like grains of sand on the soil surface, that is worm poop. That means you have very healthy soil. So Icena fetida and Icena andre work up here, turning and churning and pooping and mixing, and then their cousin Lumbrus terrestris, which are huge. They're the battleship of the annelid world. And they're like up to 8 inches long, and they create permanent burrows down here in the substrata. Composting worms do not make permanent burrows. They just live in the leaf litter and just beneath the soil surface. But the work that these guys up here do helps what Lumbrus terrestris does, because they come up through 6 feet of soil, turning and churning all of these different layers of soil aggregate. They come up, have a bite of all of the stuff that the Icena fetida and Icena andre are composting for them, and then mix it also in with the soil layers. It is an amazing symbiotic relationship just in the worm community. It is quite phenomenal. Something we can all aspire to do in our own communities. So, my friends, let's talk about how you can apply this in your life and to your community. It is so simple to build yourself a worm bin and avoid purchasing commercial products from anywhere and from anybody. And it is imperative that we do that. So anybody can do that because worms exist almost everywhere. In fact, in Australia, there's a worm that's 10 feet long. Gusanos giganticus, amazing guy, who's a great source of food, 78% protein. But back to what you can do just in your home or for your community, build yourself a worm bin. They're very simple. The casts themselves are an immediate source of food for your plants. I oftentimes have cuts on my hands because I'm so active, and in all of the years I have kept worms, I've never had an infection. I don't wear gloves. I will tell you that with this end product, it is so amazing and so concentrated. You only have to use a ratio of 1 to 10. Worm casts to whatever your aggregates are. Even if you're putting newspaper into the soil, the leftovers from your vacuum bag, your kids' schoolwork that they're not using anymore, rip it up, soak it in water overnight, put it down on the ground with a little bit of worm cast, mix it into the soil a little bit, and you have immediate food. The paper becomes a way to retard evaporation, and if you don't have mulch. It is just so simple, and it so grounds us and connects us to the mother and allows us to hear the Father and allows us to bring everything that we have that is love and compassion immediately to our environment. It is imperative, my friends, imperative that we are cleaning the vibrations around us to raise the level of nurturing and compassion, and to take on something as simple as an annelid to care for. They have so much to teach us, so much. Something that we can carry forward. There is so much empirical evidence that shows that children who are brought up with their hands in the soil, learning to care for the microbiotic organisms that help plants take up food, macrobiotic organisms like worms and springtails and roly-polies that help turn and churn and process the things that we think of as garbage. You know, you see leaves on your patio and on your lawn and you think, oh, I don't have to go out there and rake them up. And it is a free food source for worms. Worms gladly eat it for you, and they give you back black gold. Black gold that is going to feed your food, which will feed your family, which will feed your soul, so that you can move forward in life, extending that rainbow of energetic vibration that uplifts and imbues everything that you touch, everyone that you see. That is our sacred dharma. So, my friends, I leave you with that little bit of love and compassion from me to you, from Mariko from me, from Brian, our cinematographer, to me to you. Take a piece of cardboard, soak it in some water overnight, put it underneath a tree or some flowers, and in the morning, I guarantee, in the corrugation of that cardboard will be worms waiting for you to love them up and let them do what they do for you and for your environment. Start a home business. Let your kids raise worms, harvest manure, sell it to your neighbors for a nominal fee, because what you give out comes back 100-fold. And if we can all just do a little bit together, we can change the disharmony on this planet into a utopian perfection. So, thank you, my friends, and Sairam, and God bless you.